Hi, everybody. Welcome to our lecture series. I'm delighted to introduce you to the work of Gabriela Carrillo. Within the realm of architecture, there is a prevalent aspiration among practitioners to craft visually stunning buildings using the elements of nature, such as sun, shadow, wind, and sound, as tools to captivate and engage the audience. This approach often prioritizes aesthetics and experiential qualities, aiming to evoke emotional responses and leave a lasting impression on the viewer. However, it is less common to find architects that are simultaneously questioning how their projects are impacting the environment and our diverse community. And so while Gabriela is not alone in harnessing natural elements to enhance the sensory experience of her designs, she distinguishes herself by placing emphasis on ethical considerations. If today we're still seeing a distinct lack of scrutiny regarding the ecological footprint of built projects, her work serves as a catalyst for introspection, questioning the very essence of our lifestyles, our sense of community, our human impact on the site around us. With a career defined by pursuit of beautiful, vernacular, clean geometrical, socially conscious design, Gabriela's work challenges the global, modernist canon and redefines the role of architecture in contemporary society. Her work encompasses profound reflections on forms of communities and humanities in relationship to a sense of place, along with great geometrical forms and volumes. She provocatively asks whether the act of building is always the most appropriate answer, prompting us to reconsider our assumptions and explore alternative avenues to prioritizing harmony with the world around us. Can a rot exist within a house? Should it be removed to make room for living? Or is the rock life itself and should be kept while building a house? She observes the gardens in Kyoto and their composition of stones and sand and wonders why is it powerful? At the end of the day, it's only sand and rocks. But yet materials talk about the place, the culture, the climate, and the memory of the place. In her design process, she questions the way we live, our confidence, our anthropocentric attitudes toward the place we live in. Gabriela Carrillo started her eponymous atelier in 2019 as a collaborative and interdisciplinary practice and space for architectural work. She's also the co-founder of Colectivo C733, dedicated to developing public projects in Mexico. In addition to leading her own practice and to collaborating with other architects in Mexico City, she's also a faculty at the UNAM since 2003. She teaches at the 5th year a research studio in the undergraduate department. Also, she has taught at other institutions, one of which is Harvard, GSD, Kent State University, and Venice, Italy, among others. Her legacy serves as a testament to the transformative power of design, reimagining and reminding us what true architecture is, in the pursuit of beautiful and yet also harmonious coexistence of geometry, nature, material, and communities. So let's welcome Gabriela to the stage of SciArc. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. Well, thank you for being here. I'm really excited to be in SciArc. It's a great pleasure. I had been here once with my friend Carlos Cedillo when he was teaching here, and with Alberto Calach, so I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. I love the name of the school. I love a school of architectural thinking, and that's the way I think I want to do the work I do. The title of my lecture is Resonance. Resonance has deep impact my life. Today, I believe that what I'm gonna show you is something that had created these echoes and this energy that moves back and forth. So the projects I'll show you had created that impact. They are all connected somehow, and they had created the person I am today and the way I want to keep working and asking myself questions. I want to start with a project that was very complex for me. It started in 2012, I'm sorry. And this was a commission where they asked to design a library inside an old building in Mexico City, but a library for blind people. I don't know in your case, but in mine, I never had in my mind the idea to design for people that can see. And that was really tough to start to see that I used to design for myself. I used to see always from my point of view. So in this point, I visited the place. The library was already there. The building was an old one. It had many phases along the years of this building. This very beautiful. The size of these spaces, the height, wooden beams. I love to be respectful with the memory, but in this case, the library for blind people was like that. You know, like the program they asked for us was very similar. And something that started with thinking, okay, I need to start recognizing otherness. And that had changed, I think, my whole life, you know, because suddenly I wanted to start asking what happens with the rest of the senses, with smell, with the aromas, with the echoes, with the sound. So the strategies was to create a vestibule that was an aromas garden, the one that you have seen before, that we designed with an artist. Then we created 2 boxes that move around the sound and the echoes. And that garden was a composition itself. It has to do with the aromas of the rosemary or of the lemon. And then it was a provocation for the people to get inside. Then we started to think about the echoes and how space can create this impact. We usually forgot it, and it's ridiculous. So for us, the provocation of creating these echoes and silence at the same time was a big opportunity. We wanted, in Mexico, you know, there are a lot of seeing impaired because of the illness that happened, that people doesn't have money to treat them. So they start to lose their views, and the yellow is the best color to be seen. So then the yellow became an echo in the lights, in the lines, in the handrails, but also we wanted to work as an acoustical box of wood with materials, different tones of wood, to kind of find out the space where you were. We work all the time with sounds, and we found out that the program should create a futurist library that thinks in a space where sounds could be achieved. So it was the first time I designed a plan with echoes and sounds. It's a soundscape where speakers, mono speakers, general speakers happen in this. We wanted to create a clear space just with volumes floating that could rope all the sounds in one space. We found out that the library for blind people is very noisy. There are kids. I mean, in Mexico, blinds are unfortunately a group of people that are not well recognized. Imagine kids which are blinds. So this gave me the opportunity to ask myself more questions in the future, to find out that I want to design from another point of view, to feel uncomfortable all the time because of the things I found out in terms of gender, in terms of social conditions, and at the end, we managed to create, in this case, a soundscapes. There's art pieces, sound art pieces happening in the library. The furniture was designed especially for that. And it's, at the end, a labyrinth of sounds in a very clear space floating there. The second project has to do with some judicial courts. For me, it was a great opportunity to start to work with asking myself what justice means. If we as architects could do something with that. So we were hired by the municipality in Michoacán. This town is a very complex town in terms of violence. The worst drug dealing guys are there, and these were judicial courts. So Michoacán has a beautiful territory and culture. It has a yacatas, a beautiful town with slanted ceilings, full covered with clay. And we understood we need to design a very protected building. And for us, the evocation of how circulations need to happen. The first question was, does architecture can provoke liberty? Is there any opportunity that all the different floods can happen in a very free way? Because all of them are filled with bars, even though these are not spaces like prisons, it's like an earlier stage. So the whole composition of the space has to do with an echo to the context, at the same time taking advantage of the labor work that we had with stone. This is a public building, and it's ridiculous, but in that place, there are the best workers to do this stone work. And then we took advantage of the topography just to create the jails area with a higher wall, and then the other ones more clear. And then again, ask ourselves, how can democracy be expressed? You know, at the beginning, a lot of people thought this was like some kind of museum. In their minds, this didn't was significant as a judicial court building. And for us, the idea of keeping this transparency was important. When I started to move around all the judicial courts in the country, the format was traditional, you know, everything is written. There's never someone facing the other. And it was ridiculous to see the judge with a big office, even with a jacuzzi and a pole dance element in their own office. And that's a big question, how architecture could create this transparency, could create topography, could create intimacy, and another opportunity to create a landscape as well. So at the end, we managed to take away all the bars to create an articulation. I always say that the building is an articulation of a complex program where judges, where guilty or not yet guilty people is, and where other people happens, and how with that light can be something that happens again with very local materials, in this case the brick, taking advantage of the voidness and taking advantage of the mass at the same time. The next project has to do with time, and it's because I've been working in this project almost for 15 years. It's really crazy. It's a very big project, and it's very near here. It's an hour away from Tijuana in Ensenada. Ensenada has become a great place for drinking wine. I hope you have been there. Great restaurants, great food, great wine. So this place is a huge spot. It is a territory of 800 acres. It is very beautiful because the vineyards are besides the amazing mountains and the sea. And what they asked us to start working on was a winery. And then a lot of things started to happen because this winery was really small in the middle of all these vineyards. And the idea was how we can create a dialogue with the landscape, because we didn't want to do anything. You know, we wanted to unsolve ourselves, to disappear the program, the scale of the building. And then again, taking advantage of what we had learned, we created a topography that took advantage of some olive trees that were there. We understood the climate. And this is very particular. In Mexico, we had a whole diversity of climates, as you have here, of course, in the United States. And in this case, we found out like this very desertic climate, and we wanted to create kind of an atmosphere, a different kind of a pool, a place to enjoy, a place that could bring birds and frogs. And so we add this pool program to a bathroom programs. These were some bathrooms because the Vinícola became a places for parties, for weddings. It's a multi-purpose building now. And then they needed bathrooms, restrooms, you know. So what we created was this pavilion, taking advantage again of the stone, of the wood, and trying to unsolve again the different levels, the topography, and the fit facade to become a water garden. And there, the program gave us the opportunity to think about this glamping, when glamping was not that successful today, and then how to place these cabanas, and then how to create new cabanas for a whole hotel, and how this circle is a big vestibule for the hotel that connects some cabanas that are built and some cabanas that are not. And always the question when we develop hotels is to ask, how do we live? How do we inhabit? What do we accept? What is the connection? Where's the luxuries? And in this case, to think this idea of, for me, this is, I mean, you have in this territory the most amazing sky, maybe not here because of the lights of the city, but I mean, it's the same territory and the stars, and without this rain happening, in Mexico, we have rain 9 months every day. And in this case, it was an opportunity just to grow up the walls and have an opportunity to have a bed up there and to enlarge your point of view. And instead of having like a strange room, just to open your door as a garage door and enjoy being outside. And there I had the opportunity, as I mentioned, to keep working. So I had developed a house, which are at the same time, there's a beautiful fog happening in this place. And this knowledge had happened in time, you know, like understanding that the wind becomes an enemy, like knives in your face, that the fog happens every morning, that the wind is terrible. So being beside a mountain, it's healthy, that you can take advantage of the topography to create an experience, how the light moves around. And this also makes me understand a bit the scale of things. I had never worked in a territory this big. So how to place elements and how to create this connection again with the sun and with the stars and with all the materials. In this case, the stones going in an underground level stops the wind and taking advantage of this amazing and very respectful landscape. I think the idea to unsolve the architecture and to take in consideration the complexity for this landscape to grow in these desertic conditions was one of the main issues for me to understand. Taking advantage of the presentation about and talking about stones, this is a house I designed for my father and my brother. My father has been living in Acapulco for 25 years. Acapulco is one of the most beautiful spots with beautiful bays. And it was really famous. Today, we had a big hurricane that destroyed all Acapulco. So there's a lot to be done in the future in that town. And what happened is that my father bought a plot here, which had a big rock in the middle. Then I discovered it had 2 rocks. My father is a geologist, and he wanted to have a very traditional house, you know, like a very urban house. And that's something that has happened in the beach houses. Like people want to replicate the urban house they have, like with glass, all with air conditioning. And this spot is really hot. I need to say Acapulco is really hot. But for me, it's what's so excited to have the opportunity to grab that stone. And not only it, because all the land was filled with stones. So my first question was, this is my family. I want to provoke and ask myself, in terms of social issues, in terms of these patriarchal conditions where there's a main room, there's a boys' room, there's a girls' room, which I hate. I'm against that. They wanted a big house, and all filled with air conditioning. The topography was really tough, so I wanted to take advantage of all the different levels I could grab. I wanted to disappear the house, so I wanted to imagine that the topography becomes a big plaza, and to find the level where the wind blows, where the infinity view of the pool happens with the sea, and where the stone grows, was the same level. I needed to walk this plot a lot. And then the other thing was they wanted 4 rooms. So I wanted a portico that could be open back and forth so wind could cross and air conditioning was like not needed. Of course, it needs to happen. And I wanted also the color of the sand of Acapulco. So I took advantage of one material and just trying to scale the house in the different levels, take advantage of the topography, create that infinite view, and then ask myself, I want to create some nowadays with all this climate change, all these environmental issues, how to achieve a minimum act that could connect intention, just framing and understanding these main characters, which were the stones for me. And of course, taking advantage of a geologist owner who could accept having this stone left there. And then managing a bit and taking advantage, I know my brother that he was going to pay and just saying, if you put glass here and you need to put air conditioning, it is going to be very expensive. So we shouldn't do it. So at the end, the house has just the purpose to create a frame, and there's where I put a lot of energy, just how to create that clearance with a very nice lap of concrete, without any beams, without any columns, and work with a structural guy, just to understand that the whole building is a big beam, and the division walls from the rooms could become that beam. So the structure became the minimum, and the house could float and could create this tension between the organic world of the stones and these perfect lines, orthogonal lines. Then happens crisis, and crisis is an important input when you live in a country like mine. And we have crises everywhere. So we had the big 2 earthquakes in 2017. And a lot of you had done programs here with Carlos Cedillo. He was one of the a big leader in terms of reconstruction programs that we got. Because our relationship with the Secretary of Culture in the area of Morelos, that was the place where the earthquake happened. All the spots were small towns, very old traditional towns that were damaged because of the earthquake. And I was really involved. I mean, I have a kid, an 8-year-old kid. At that point, he was like 2 years old. I wanted to ask myself, what should we do as architects? So I wanted to protect the patrimony, which was ridiculous, 80 houses in a town, very beautiful earth-walled houses with big heights. And I created, as a teacher in UNAM, as a professor, I created programs, social programs with my students to bring people building with the earth and to work with them. Unfortunately, that program was a failure, I need to say. And failures are opportunities, as I mentioned, because the result is that I didn't get to finish a good project with the community. I was really sad. I wanted to be not doing architecture anymore, and what happened is suddenly I didn't want to teach anymore because I thought we have enough energy, you know. We have 7,000 students here and a lot of families, so every student can adopt a family, help them and do work, but that didn't happen. So then I developed a program which is Estudio RX, is this research program seminar that I have with Loretta Castro in the UNAM. And the idea is that we as architects can't work with crisis in an emergency, because the emergency is the food, is security, is health. But space needs time. And so we started to find out crisis, and we found out that cracks were an issue. And because of the typology of the land where our city is based, we have a lot of problems. Now we're working in migration, which we believe it's the biggest phenomenon that we are facing as a world in terms of social and anthropologist things. But well, in this case, we decided to work with cracks. And cracks is something logic, you know, in a context like this. Our city is based in a lake, 5 lakes surrounded by volcanoes. Along the years, volcanoes do the eruptions, then lake bed eruptions along time. Then 25 million people being together, living together, a lot of economical differences and social issues, of course, scarcity everywhere. We're very not ecological at all. We don't harvest water, we don't treat water, we are a disaster. Specifically around the lakes, the cracks happen, and there's no coincidence. We had found out that cracks, physical cracks, are reflected in social cracks, is where violence happen, is where complex issues in social terms happen. So we started to work in this territory that we had found out was filled with cracks, and this house had felt without any earthquake in between. All the black plots on the map were, we call them red codes. So there are spots where no one should build, and everything had happened in informality. We managed to have a relationship with a municipality, local municipality. This specifically, this municipality has 2 million people. It's the more dense area in the city and the poorest as well. So we got a school with 2 cracks happening. We got a lot of rubble because rubble is like the local material in Iztapalapa, and a very strange territory to work in. So we started to create some lines, and I'm sorry, okay? We started to create some lines and to rule the topography with the same rubble, and to create a new topography that could manage different programs like gardening, a gym, outside gym, a playground area, a cultural forum. So at the end we design, we work with the community, with the students. It was a big work asking what they want. They wanted a kiosk, they wanted a place for alcoholism discussion, for violence. It is a very complex site. There are no public spaces here, and the garden became a possible connection for the neighborhood. And there was also an opportunity to work with a very specific doctor, geologist, a doctor that studied the cracks. And you see all the cracks happening on the territory. So those were the rules where we compose a garden, again, an intelligent garden that talks about how, what type of vegetation. We're really responsible with the type of vegetation that happens. We're very careful nowadays of what is being built, but we ignore the type of landscape we're placing. And what happens in Iztapalapa is that everyone wants grass. And grass is a big irresponsibility. It needs a lot of water. It needs to be someone taking care of it. The natural landscape is magueyes, is gravel, volcanic stone. So at the end, we create with this doctor an observatory. It's an observatory to talk about subsidence and cracks. And it's because cracks and subsidence are attached. You know, today we have earthquakes almost every day, and this is because we're draining water from the subsoil. Subsidence is happening because all these different layers of geology, very different geology. This has become really violent somehow. So we wanted to explain with a very small minimum economical building, kind of a machine that could move with the movements of the earth, the cracks where they are, and to create a space of knowledge. And then we design a garden of benches and of wells. It's more like wells. So the idea is to keep doing these wells for research purposes, and that people could find out that this is a garden, and that this is another type of garden where these trucks or these wells are happening this way, and that's beauty as well. But more than beauty, is intelligence and knowledge of where the houses are. In this site, you see, everything is auto-constructed. So everyone is building their own foundations. And for us, it was really important to share that. And this became a big and deep investigation for me, who'd become the resonance. I understood the phenomenon that we see maps, but then we never understand. And we see like, oh yes, is how it moves. But it also is the timing, the way the water moving has to do with echoes. And these houses felt, and they were one-story level houses. And it was because they resonate with the typology of the building. So I developed a research, and what happens is that the rules in Mexico make all the structures became bigger, wider, heavier, and for me it was just like asking myself in this program of art that I got this scholarship, how geometry could become intelligent and done in civil work, and the rest should be prefab. And imagine, we don't have these prefab sophisticated systems. Everything is very local produced. And then another friend that has worked with communities for a long time during the earthquakes. So at the end, what had happened is that in 3 years, we had developed 35 projects built and designed. In that time, the first proposal was to develop a market. It was not built in 3 months, but it was built in 4. To have a budget of more or less $600 per square meter to develop important different typologies and in very different contexts and conditions. So at the end, we always say we design a strategy. The strategy starts with the group and with the knowledge of the different leaders of the team. Then to design a section that understand the big programs like multiple purpose rooms, courts, like communitary places to have food, and then the small ones that receive restrooms, small workshops. So we also wanted to design very light structures because of the budget and to be very intelligent in terms of the geometry again. So triangles are not the will and the shape is not the will. For us, it's like the common sense. It's the way we avoid considering the snow, the rain. It's the way we take advantage to take off the conditions of the earthquake or the hurricanes. And well, we started with the competition of the market, and we were inspired. The market is in Matamoros. It is a very horrible area, I need to say. It's like a desert. The plot where we were working was filled with needles, I think, for drugs. There's no public space at all. And our thoughts were like inspired by the traditional Northeast architecture, which was really protecting from the sun, which is very tough. And we also wanted in our program to harvest, to take advantage. I mean, the name of the Colectivo was the code that we place in the competition. And we were discussing these 2 weeks how public architecture should be. Because in Mexico, we didn't have public architecture for the last 70 years. And it's because they pay for the constructors to build wherever they want. They don't care about design. So there hasn't existed just like the big projects. So in these communities, like markets are just like a simple cover made of steel. They don't care anything. So we thought we'll read from Eladio Dieste, a beautiful phrase that said, public architecture should be economical, efficient, logic, but always cosmic. And for us, the cosmic has to do with understanding where you are, like creating this echo and this resonance with the topography, with the climate, with the vegetation, with the wind. And in this case, we wanted to create a protective structure which was done in civil work, and then the prefab, which were these umbrellas in the center, like creating a patio and a portico around an oasis. Of course, that oasis needed to harvest water so we can make it happen and place it with local vegetation. So we designed the patios. We were designing the schemes in plan, of course. We were designing environmental strategies for things to happen, like harvest water, of course, without any air conditioning, let the light happen. And then the structural issue, how we were considering, we were designing, understanding the weight of each umbrella and of each plane, so they could transport these elements to the place already built. And at the end, this was our proposal. We said, we don't want to reproduce this market, so we're leaving you a strategy. You can change the materials. We use different layers. In Matamoros, we have production of bricks. So our layer of brick is acoustical, thermical, important for the quality of space. Then we have the steel, which is easy to harvest water and move it clean and send it to the gardens. Then the material has to do with the local condition. Then the walls has to do with the program, and then the prefab element could be a very simple steel geometrical structure that happens, that maybe on its own is very subtle and very thin, but once it gets attached, it becomes a system. And then, of course, in our mind, this should happen all in brick. So we used local brick, but there was not enough production in 4 months. So then we used part of it in mechanical bricks with at this picture, the garden hadn't happened yet because of the pandemic. It was finished, but it was not open till 1.5 years later. And one important idea in this also was to recognize something that happens in my country, which is informality. If you see my streets, if you see everywhere, people goes, open their things, they sell everything. There is life. So we wanted to create paths everywhere. We wanted the garden to be a place to cross through the neighborhood. And then this flexible space could become anything, because there's anything here. So this place could become a place for classes at night, or a community center, and also, of course, a center for shopping, your groceries, and of course, how to get the light in and these basic elements to happen. Some months later, with the pandemic, they said, we want you to replicate your market, but now in the southern border. And we were, of course, we are not going to, well, we are going to replicate it, but not replicate. We are going to follow the system that we had created. And that system, we already understood the scale of these elements. We took off the voids, because in this case, rain happens all the time. We create an opportunity to harvest water and to flood it to water gardens. And then we changed the material. We found a local production community of bamboo. And then we decided to create this veil inside of bamboo, and then the garden became a path and a garden, outside garden, for informality to happen. We used the brick as well, and then in this case, the market became a connectivity between one neighborhood and the other. Then what happened, they asked us to change the scale. And this was a great opportunity, because the market was really small, you know, it was like it was no more than 2,000 square meters. But in this case, they say, okay, this is a whole neighborhood, this is a whole block, and different sportive activities happen. We want a baseball field, we want some football courts, flexible courts, and we want another space. So what we did is, we had never been in a baseball field before, I need to say. It was a surprise. Then we found out that the diamond is the best place and the most expensive one. And we said, okay, we want to talk about democracy. We will leave those best places for a public plaza. Of course, the municipal president was very unhappy with that, because he did business with those places. So this was an opportunity to ask ourselves how, doing architecture, we could We're doing politics somehow. And in this point, we created this scenario where we said we want to do a lot of things at the same time. We wanted to create, we don't want to have a fence, so create a topography. And that's very pre-Hispanic, you know, and very inexpensive. You can move earth easily. We want to do with one act everything. And we want to use brick as well because it at the end it's timeless. So that action was how we can produce a baseball field, put people to see the baseball field, not to have this big wall of I don't know how many meters long, which is violent at the same time because nothing's happening there. There's no life in the cities. In my country, life is important for violence not to happen. And for us, is how to create this transparency. So it became a fence, it became a bench, it became a portico because there are no trees growing there. So the portico was healthy for the sun and for people to walk around. And then to enlarge this, we could get a place for boxing and a gym they want. So we managed to do that kind of strategy to create a transparent fence. Again, our client was happy, the federal government. The local government was very unhappy. They wanted fences everywhere. And for us, it was like a manifesto to say, okay, the main places are for free. The benches are a portico to walk under the sun. And this is a new opportunity to imagine how architecture can change a bit of these social issues that we are living, unfortunately. And something similar in this big scale happened in the south, in Tapachula, in one of the most troubled migration areas today. Like all the plazas, public spaces are filled with migrants. They use the plazas as restrooms to clean their clothes, to wash themselves. It's a big issue. Let's say, in my country, because the border was reinforced in the south. And we wanted to ask how our space, which was going to be a community center, could receive these people. This was a train station. When we got it, it was completely abandoned. It was a garbage area, a drug dealing area. And I was very happy to see again SciArc because it's so amazing, this long building, like I remember a lot this one. So this project was again an articulation, the strategy of the section, the lightness of the structure, taking advantage of bamboo. In this case, rain happens, so we believe we don't have money to cover all this space, but if we just place vegetation can grow, and we will have like a big portico of vegetation in the future. Then time, you know, here, this land is Tabasco. Tabasco is under the sea level. And what happens is that in 20 years, we took a look to these programs that see the future of the land, and it says that it's going to be flooded. So we were asking, shit, we're going to build and invest public money in something that is not going to exist in 20 years. So our answer was, okay, it's because there are wetlands on top. You see, like everything gets flooded easily. So we had almost nothing of money, and we said, like pre-Hispanic cultures. And pre-Hispanic cultures live there. You know, it's 90% of the people speaks this Chontal language. There's a cultural syncretism. This is the church. That was the land. And what we did is just move land. And we believe in, I was just reading a very beautiful phrase that said that the wisest civilizations do things that maybe neither their grandsons will see. And we are always anxious to see our results. So in this case, our energy was just placed in creating a topography, in placing a lot of trees that now are this thin, poor trees, that will have a shadow maybe in 20 or 25 years, to take advantage again of the clay and to move the earth. And then with that topography, we believe that in the future, water will run, but the football court, the football field will be like an island, and maybe also that will happen with the baseball field, and maybe the playground will be something like slopes and fields between water and topography. In that same land, we did a house of music, and it was very beautiful to work with a teacher. It was a house of music for kids. Very small budgets for these houses to happen because there's no money, the government is paying for this. And we had the river. What happened in my country is that every town that faces to a river closed a big wall. It's like a backyard, no? It's like the back of the house. They threw everything, it's polluted. So we say, we're going to see the river. And we create this very simple scheme of eight axes that face to the river. We created 3 slanted ceilings, and these ceilings was a strategy to create a conscious about water. So we harvest the water, we repurpose the water, we clean the water with the wetlands, and we send them to the river clean. And everything was done with brick in different conditions, in the ceiling, in the lattices, in the floors. We wanted to work with the light. We wanted to work with acoustical elements, with local coconut wood to achieve acoustics, and then to create this type of bales to have small rooms for particular classrooms of different instruments, and then this big hall, which is also for parties and festivities, and then to break the limits, you know, like it's ridiculous that public architecture has fences all the time. So we wanted to break that limit of the plot and create this street going inside and just not to understand where something starts or something ends. There's a beautiful music tradition behind. And memory is a big theme in my country. And memory has to do with eyes of the god, that they say, which are these huicholes figures, which are very beautiful, just to create a kiosk in the middle of the plaza, or the old aduana, which is like the place, an old building where they used to burn the merchandise that couldn't go into the town. And that memory wanted to be kept somehow in these interventions. This is changed to become a cultural center, and then the trees, the voidness, the patios is something that is important for us. We don't have enough money to build a lot, but we have the powerful of the voidness as a big condition, and this voidness could become a forum, a place to do workshops. We wanted, of course, again, to take advantage of this old brick that is still produced there, and to wrap, again, this cultural program in a very flexible condition. In the same site, but some meters away, we remember that the landscape had to do with these old buildings, but also with old ships, because this is an important and used to be a very important dock area. So we create, again, taking the opportunity to think that architecture is an opportunity to think our practices, to think the way we want to imagine things. We didn't want to bring a game. You know, what happens today is that you bought this very expensive playground for kids, and you place it everywhere as if all the land is the same. And in this case, we wanted to create something that has to do with ships. So, and we wanted to incorporate in a sensitive way water, but water in a sensitive way means not using a lot of water, considering evaporation, harvest that water, create these kind of pluviometers, like spaces that could be filled because they are porous when it rains, and when not, they look nice being without water. And they create this playground of waves floating, and then of course this shelter again for things to happen, like a court, but it's also a place to take ships or a ferry to an island. And just to finish, this is the last project, and this project has a big resonance for me today, and is to ask where our work starts and what does architecture means in the 21st century. And if you see, to take a look, this is one of the most amazing spots in Mexico. It is Laguna de Bacalar, the Lagoon of the Seven Colors. It is one of the only spots in Mexico with Cuatro Ciénegas that has these old, very old, ancient organisms alive, which are called estromatolitos. These estromatolitos are ancient figures. I mean, there are very spots in the whole world with these creatures or these alive beings. And Bacalar is this small, a very small town besides the lagoon. And what had happened? Like social issues, beautiful site, many very expensive hotels, the people of the community no more access to the lagoon. What had happened? We are very aware and very worried because of the growth of the urban condition. But we haven't seen that along the years, all the jungle that is beside has been destroyed by agriculture, by soy, and what had happened is that this started to grow, and now that area is so much bigger. So for one period, when we started to work there, the lagoon lost the colors, and everyone was very anxious. And when they said, we need to work here, these three projects, besides the lagoon, public spaces, we said, we don't want to do anything. This is irresponsible to do anything. We are not capable to do a public building here. And we took advantage of this important thing, which is to talk with others which are not architects, and that's something we use to do a lot. And we get in contact with the most expertise of this lagoon, and she said, okay, this is a problem, blah, blah, blah. There is no drainage, everything goes to the lagoon, this is a big problem. So what we designed were drainages, like public spaces that are gardens that contain all the garbage of the floods of polluted water to the lagoon, and these with topographical elements, with wetlands, with different strategies that we work with a landscape designer as well, and with these special people that knows a lot of wetlands and everything. And again, this idea of working with local materials, in this case, the palm, and structures, very light structures. And in particular, in this context, they say we want a community center. And we were really anxious, saying it's impossible to build anything here. Like everything is a wetland, it's like mangrove, 70% of the plot is a mangrove, then it's the lagoon, then nobody takes care of the mangrove because they are always paying attention to the lagoon. Of course, there's a big environmental issue here. This became a very political project because in terms of working with the social and political issues and authorities. And our strategy was, we're not going to do a community center, or we are. But the community center is going to be a dock, and that dock is going to be an observatory, and that is going to be an observatory for the mangrove, for the lagoon, and for the stars. So what we did is we created a strategy of landscape to create these drainage ponds along that area. We wanted to recover the mangrove that was damaged. We invested a lot of money in one area. Unfortunately, we didn't get the money for the mangrove reconstruction. And there's political issues that doesn't let you reconstruct the mangrove, which we had destroyed. We created a strategy. We designed a structure that could be the lightest, that the column could become the foundation, the column, the beam, one single thing at the same time. So the design has to do with just common sense of what structure. It is a local wood of Chico Zapote, and then it's just a plane that slants to get free of, to be near the lagoon or to get free of the mangrove. We couldn't touch any of the mangrove. So it is from 80 centimeters from the lagoon till 7 meters height. And the last one, well, the other was to create a scenography, a museography, and to tell the people about this, about the story of the lagoon. So we create kind of a live museum where people could go around. This is almost 1 kilometer, 800 meters, 200 meters each side, and to discover and to know a bit more of the story and to create kind of a conscience behind. And then the last one was as a pre-Hispanic structures to face the north. And facing the north, what happens is it creates a tension between the water, between the shadow, between this system of going up, and just because of the shadow, understanding how slanted is this element. And at the same time, when I presented this project to my client, he laughed. He said, "Oh, you're not doing a building that I asked." And I say, "It is." But at the end, this building has 3 meters wide. It has 200 meters per side. When it gets up, it receives all the program that we need, like restrooms, the lab for the research program. We can make it fixed because it's 3 meters wide. And at the same time, it's a democratization of the lagoon, because it's a public space where people can visit, where people can take sun, and where people can discover and learn a bit more of the environment. And he said, he laughed, but he accepted at the end. And just to end is to ask ourselves, where and what do architecture or doing architecture means in this 21st century? Thank you.